They told the world the first humans landed on Mars in 2033. That's a lie. We went in 1979. I was there. You've never heard my name. You won't find any record of our mission because they buried it, erased it, and anyone who tried to speak out vanished. It was called Project Ares, classified beyond top secret, operated outside of NASA's public framework. We weren't astronauts, we were assets. The mission was a joint operation between a black-budget division of NASA and another agency I was never allowed to name. Even now, I don't know exactly who they were. They recruited me because of my background in aerospace mechanics, but more than that, because I had a psychological profile suited for extreme isolation and prolonged trauma. I didn't ask questions. I signed the papers, and I disappeared from the world. They launched us at night, from a facility I'd never seen before, deep in the desert, buried under layers of fake mining operations and falsified air traffic logs. We were 5, 2 pilots, 1 engineer, 1 exobiologist, and me, mission specialist. They told us the mission was reconnaissance, to test the limits of early Mars landing tech and evaluate soil and atmosphere for long-term colonization. But the moment we entered Martian orbit, I knew they hadn't told us everything. The surface scan showed anomalies, heat signatures, structured geometry beneath the sand, echoes, literal audio echoes, bouncing from locations that should have been silent. And then came the voice transmission. It wasn't from us. It wasn't from Earth. It was a looped signal repeating in a language no one could recognize. The pilots wanted to abort. Control denied us. We landed 2 days later in a region they called Sector B13, near the Valles Marineris. Remember the dust, thick, static-charged? It clung to the suit like it was alive. The moment our boots touched that soil, everything changed. The air inside our suits was recycled, but the tension, you could taste it. None of us spoke much after landing. Something about Mars, the silence, the emptiness. It presses on you, not like a vacuum, like a presence waiting to be noticed. We set up base 300 meters from the landing site. A compact structure deployed automatically and sealed itself into the regolith. That part went smooth, but from the moment we activated the ground-penetrating radar, nothing made sense. There were shapes under us, geometric patterns, massive voids, too regular to be natural, too deep to be recent. Our exobiologist, Dr. Kellerman, was the first to speak up. "That's not a cave system," she said. "That's architecture." 3 hours later, we deployed a drilling unit. They told us not to. Our instructions were clear: surface scans only, collect samples, no penetration. But we had to know. We drilled exactly 1.2 meters before the bit struck something solid. Not rock, metal, not rusted, not corroded, smooth, dark, warm to the touch, through gloves. We stopped everything and sent the telemetry back to command. There was no reply, no confirmation, no denial, just static, but static that didn't sound random. It pulsed, a pattern, almost, like breathing. I don't know who gave the order, but we kept digging, not with the drill by hand. The metal surface stretched in every direction. It wasn't a fragment, it was a structure. We uncovered what looked like a panel, or maybe a door. Circular, indentation, dot symbols along the edge, the same symbols that had flashed inside our lander during descent. Just for a moment, we'd thought it was a glitch. It wasn't. Dr. Kellerman was cataloging the markings when the ground shook, just once. A short, deep vibration, like something had moved underneath. Then the door opened, not mechanically. It didn't slide or rotate, it just vanished. A perfectly cut circle into blackness. No sound, no wind, no heat signature. The pilots wanted to mark it and return, but control came back online. This time the voice was different, slower, distorted. It didn't respond to questions. It didn't identify itself. It only said, "Proceed." We were 5 when we landed, but not all of us came back out. We stared at that black hole for what felt like hours. No light came out. No depth was visible. Even our flashlights, military grade, couldn't pierce it. The air inside our suits was normal. No radiation spikes, no signs of danger, and yet every instinct screamed, "Don't go down there." But Kellerman stepped forward anyway. She said, "We're here for truth, aren't we?" And she dropped a probe into the opening. For a second, the screen flickered, then cut to black. No data, no feed, just gone. Control's voice came again through the comms. "Enter." It didn't ask, it ordered. So we rigged a descent system, a simple tether with magnetic grips to keep us from floating if gravity failed. The first one to go down was Harrison, our lead pilot. He vanished almost immediately into the black. No screams, no confirmation, just silence. Then Kellerman followed, then Reynolds, then me. I felt the edge of the metal ring with my gloved hands as I lowered myself. It wasn't just smooth, it was alive. It vibrated ever so faintly, as if aware I was touching it. And when I descended into the dark, it wasn't darkness at all. It was something else. Space folded. I didn't fall. I didn't float. I just shifted, and suddenly I was standing inside a chamber the size of a stadium. No visible walls, only pillars, columns of light rising into infinity, and floating, in the center, was something that defied logic. A sphere, blacker than black. Absorbing. All light, all sound, but I could hear it in my mind, a low hum. Like chanting, not in a language. In meaning, I saw flashes, not with my eyes, but in my thoughts. A planet burning, structures collapsing inward, a great silence spreading like a virus. And then, Earth. But not the Earth we left, an Earth rewritten. New. Oceans, new continents, new sky, and at the center of it all, tanked to the sphere. I turned to speak, but my voice was gone. My crew stood beside me, mouths open, eyes wide, frozen. Then I noticed Reynolds wasn't blinking, neither was Kellerman. They were breathing, but rigid, like statues made of flesh. Only I could move, only I could think clearly. And the sphere, it pulsed when I realized this. It responded to me. And just then, I heard something behind me, a step, slow, deliberate. But when I turned, there was nothing. Not nothing as in empty. Nothing as in wrong. A shape that couldn't exist, a form that shifted even as I tried to look at it. I wasn't seeing it. I was remembering it, as if it had been there all along, watching, waiting, and then I understood. This was not alien. This was ancient. Something left behind, not to be found, but to be awakened, and we had just tripped the switch. I don't know how long I stood there. Time didn't work right inside that place. It wasn't just underground. It was outside everything we understood. No compass, no gravity shift, no orientation, and yet I knew where to go. The sphere in the center pulsed again, not like a machine, like a heartbeat. And with every pulse, the chamber shifted, not physically but perceptually. What looked like empty space became corridors. What looked like light became windows, and what I thought were walls began to breathe. It wasn't a structure, it was a being, not alive in the biological sense, not flesh, not cells, but aware, responsive, older than memory. I approached the sphere. My legs moved on their own, not under control. More like permission, and then I heard it, not with my ears, with my mind, a voice that sounded like 1,000 people whispering at once inside my skull. "You are the last key. The gate has waited. We remember you." And just like that, images exploded into my brain, not memories, not visions. Truths. We weren't the first humans to reach this place. There had been others, centuries ago, maybe longer. They weren't astronauts. They weren't from Earth, but we carried their legacy, fragments of their DNA, buried deep inside us, hidden until someone returned to awaken it. That's what Voyager was, a ping, a call, a test, to see if Earth had developed far enough to rediscover its inheritance. We weren't meant to land on Mars in 1979. We were meant to trigger the vault. And now that we had, it began. The black sphere lifted, floated upward, and for the first time we saw beneath it a massive spiraling pit, carved with symbols that changed when you looked at them. A stairwell, a conduit, a portal. The sphere hovered over it like a sentinel, and then Reynold, he stepped forward. His eyes were solid black, no iris, no white. He spoke without moving his lips. I see it now. We were never the crew. We were the offering. That's when the screaming began. Not from him, from Kellerman. She dropped to her knees, clutching her helmet, blood pouring from her nose. She was saying something, and one word over and over. Awake, awake, awake. And then, silence. Her visor fogged, her heart monitor flatlined. And the rest of us, we couldn't move. Reynold stepped into the pit. Not fell stepped, like he belonged, and the sphere followed. The light in the chamber dimmed, and I heard the voice one last time. One remains to carry the memory. One remains to lie. I knew what it meant. One of us had to go back, to tell the story, to make it sound like we never found anything, to keep the gate sealed until the right time, and that's why I'm here now, telling you what no one else will. Because that time is now. They said I was in shock, that I was dehydrated, hallucinating, unstable. They told the press we'd lost contact with the lander, that the mission was unmanned, that no humans ever set foot on Mars. And I played along. Because the alternative wasn't survivable. But here's the thing, man, I remember everything. And worse, I remember what I shouldn't. When they pulled me out of the recovery chamber, I hadn't aged. Not a single day. The rest of the world moved on. Presidents changed. Wars were fought and forgotten. But I was frozen in a narrative that no one else believed ever happened. Was the last member of a mission that never existed. The lone survivor of a crew that no one could verify. They debriefed me in an underground facility for 6 months. Psychological evaluations, neurological scans, hypnosis. I told them the truth. Every horrifying detail. But the moment I mentioned the sphere or the symbols or what Reynold said in the pit, they shut the session down every time, over and over. One day a man came into my room. He wore no badge, no uniform. He didn't introduce himself. He simply said, "You passed. Now forget." They gave me a new identity, a fake life, a pension, and they released me back into the world. But the world was off. At first it was small things, streetlights flickering when I passed, phones ringing without numbers, dreams that didn't feel like mine, always with the same image, a sky. With no stars, a voice made of static, a gate, slowly opening. Then came the whispers. Not in my ears, in the electronics. Radios flipping channels on their own. TVs playing broadcasts in languages no one could identify, always for a second, then gone. And I started seeing them. People with blank stares, frozen smiles, walking just a second out of sync with time. You ever watch someone blink too late? Or turn their head like they're not really sure how a neck works? They're not hallucinations. They're signals, test patterns, preparing the environment. Because when I looked in the mirror last week, my reflection didn't copy me. I raised my hand. It hesitated. I leaned in. It smiled before I did. And then it whispered, "The gate is open." You brought us home. Man, I don't sleep anymore. Not really, because when I do, I dream in geometry. I hear voices that sound like my crew, calling me from inside the pit, asking me why I left them behind, telling me it's not done yet, because something came back with me. Not a parasite, not an entity, a seed planted in me, growing quietly in the folds of my memory, feeding on denial, preparing. And the more I speak, the stronger it becomes. I thought telling this story would release me from it, but I was wrong. Telling it is activating it. So if you're still here, still listening, you've heard the frequency now too. You've been exposed. You're part of it, and when the gate finally opens for good, you'll remember this moment, just like I did, just like we all will. I used to think it was just in my head, a lingering trauma, a neurological glitch from something I was never meant to see. But now, it's in the world and it's spreading. I see it in people, not everyone, just some. A barista who stares too long before taking your order. A man at the bus stop smiling at nothing for minutes. Children singing melodies they were never taught. Last, Week, I walked past a group of teenagers. They were laughing. Normal, right? Except the sound looped. Not just repeated, just looped perfectly like a sound effect. I stopped, turned, and they were gone. No footprints, no motion, just static in the air, like heat rising from asphalt. I recorded it. When I played it back at home, it wasn't laughter. It was a voice, layered in reverse. I ran it through filters, slowed it down. This is what it said. The gate is memory. The signal is thought. The world you knew has been overwritten. That night I didn't sleep because I started hearing tapping from inside the walls, from my phone, even turned off, from the mirror. 3 sharp taps, 1 pause, then 2 more, like Morse code. I looked it up. It spells awaken. My body's different. Now, not visibly. Not yet. But my dreams bleed into waking life. I see patterns in numbers, in clouds, in the way cracks form on concrete. They all point to the same shape, a spiral, wrapped in a triangle, surrounded by orbiting eyes. And that shape, it was on the wall of the pit, deep beneath Mars. It's not just a symbol, it's a trigger, a broadcast, a language that programs reality itself. I started seeing it on buildings, graffiti. I swear wasn't there the day before. Drawn in chalk, in scratches, in condensation on windows, like the world is remembering it too. And then came the news reports, but not mainstream, local stations, random uploads, brief moments before being pulled offline, reports of people freezing in place, of entire apartment buildings where no one answers the door, of blackouts where the sky turns a deeper shade, not dark. Just wrong, and always right before it happens. 3 taps, 1 pause, 2 taps, just like what I heard in the walls, like it's testing the system, not just the grid, the human grid. And here's the worst part, I've started answering back. I don't remember doing it, but my hands move, my mouth speaks, and sometimes I wake up in places I've never been, standing, still, facing east, and I swear, the stars aren't where they used to be. People tell me I'm paranoid, that I'm sick, that I'm slipping. Maybe I am. But ask yourself, have you noticed the flicker in your phone's camera, the lag in your reflection, the sudden silence in a crowd? That's not your mind playing tricks. That's the world adjusting. That's the gate opening, from the inside, because it never needed to invade. It only needed one thing, someone to remember. It, and that was me. At first I thought it was just memory, misplaced keys, forgetting what I walked into the room for, losing track of hours while staring at a blank screen. Normal stuff. Until it wasn't. I walked to the store last Tuesday at least I thought it was Tuesday, but when I got there, the street was different, stores with different names, people dressed like it was 20 years ago. I checked my phone, no signal, and then I saw myself, standing across the street, wearing the same jacket, looking around, just as confused as I was. We locked eyes. He froze and then he mouthed something. Too late. Then the world blinked. Just like that, and I was back. Normal sidewalk, cars moving, people looking at me like I was insane. I thought I'd hallucinated. But later that night, I found a receipt in my pocket from a store that no longer exists. It was dated 1996. This wasn't memory loss, it was temporal slippage. I started tracking it, keeping logs, cameras running 24/7. Clocks synced across analog and digital formats, and what I found chilled me. There are moments, tiny ones, when the world skips. Shadows. Move too fast, objects shift slightly in position. You blink, and your desktop icons are in a different order. Micro resets, like the system is rewriting itself in real time, not crashing. Updating. The worst was 2 nights ago. I set up a mirror facing my bed, trying to see what happens when I sleep. I reviewed the footage the next morning. And I saw myself get up, but I never woke up. I got out of bed, eyes closed, and stood at the mirror. For 7 full minutes, mouth moving, no sound. And then, just before climbing back into bed, my reflection turned to the camera, not me, just the reflection, and said, "This loop is degrading. You must go back. Go back where? To the pit, to Mars? Is that even possible?" And then it hit me. Maybe I never left. Maybe all of this is part of the structure. Maybe the sphere didn't send me home. Maybe it sent me to a simulation of home, built from my memories, my guilt, my story. A copy, a closed loop, and now it's falling. Apart because I wasn't supposed to question it. I was supposed to obey, to keep the secret buried. But I broke the pattern. I told you the truth. And now, time is bleeding. People walk backward through crowds. Clocks spin sideways. Voices echo before. They're spoken. And sometimes when I look at the moon, I see two of them. One full, one gibun watching. We're running out of time. Not because it's ending, because it's being erased. I had to know. I couldn't trust clocks. I couldn't trust mirrors. So I went analog, manual, maps, paper, old books, offline. Records, analog compasses, telescopes, and even those didn't agree with each other. Distances changed between days. My neighborhood's coordinates shifted. The stars, wrong positions, constellations, slightly off, as if rearranged. Then I tried something desperate. I left town. I drove for hours without GPS, just by landmarks and instinct. And I started noticing something. The farther I got from home, the more reality degraded, roads looping into themselves, same gas station appearing 3 times 40 miles apart, people with blank faces staring into space. Not ignoring me, staring through me, and the sky, it didn't rotate. No stars moved across it. It was static, like a painted dome, so I went deeper. Abandoned towns, places off the grid, and in one of them, a ruined motel in the middle of nowhere. I found something, a file labeled Experiment 9A Mars Containment Protocol. Inside, diagrams of the pit, the sphere, and me, a psychological profile, a mission transcript, and a note that broke me. Subject believed extraction successful. Actual location remains within containment layer. Memory loop stable. Degradation beginning. That's when I finally accepted it. I never left Mars. I'm not on Earth. I'm inside a reconstruction, a mental ecosystem built to contain the trauma, suppress the truth, and delay the awakening of what lies beneath. I was the last key, remember? But the key wasn't to unlock a gate. It was to keep it shut. And I'm failing. Every time I remember more, every time I speak the story, every time you listen to it, the containment fractures, the simulation corrupts. Because this isn't just about Mars. Mars was the surface, the tomb, the casing. What's underneath isn't a place, it's a mind, and I'm inside it. We all might be. Have you ever had déjà vu so strong it hurts? Ever walked into a room and forgot who you were just for a second? Ever? Had a dream that felt too real, like you were being watched, not by something in the dream, but something outside it? That's it. That's the edge. You've touched it. And now? Now it's watching you. Because once a consciousness becomes aware of its own simulation, the system either erases it or recruits it. And I think I know what role I'm being pushed toward, but I'm not done yet. There's one more place to go, one more level to break. If this world isn't real, then I need to find the exit. And I think I know where it is. The same place where it all began. Back to the pit. I followed the signs. I don't mean road signs, those are gone now. Mean the symbols, carved into stone, scratched into bathroom mirrors, drawn in ash on rooftops after storms. The same triangle spiral eye I first saw in the pit. It was guiding me, or maybe herding me. Days no longer feel like days. I don't sleep anymore, I just lose time. But somehow I made it back to where it all started. The desert, the launch site. Only now. There's nothing there, no facility, no roads, just sand and silence, but the coordinates match. And beneath the surface, I know, it's still there. The pit. I start digging. No tools, just my hands, like I'm not a man anymore, but something that remembers being one. And after what feels like forever, my fingers hit metal, smooth, warm, alive, just like before. Only this time, it opens on its own. The black circle yawns wide, welcoming me back, and I fall. No tether, no descent system, just falling but not down, inward into myself. And when I land, I'm not in a chamber, I'm in a mirror, a reflection of Earth, my hometown, my childhood street. But it's hollow, quiet, frozen mid-moment. A world paused on a memory I didn't choose. Then the air ripples like heat distortion, and I see him again, me but older, colder, wearing the mission suit from 1979. And he speaks, no movement in his face, just thought, "You never left. You were never meant to. The structure isn't beneath Mars. It is Mars, and you are its last protocol." Then my surroundings begin to crumble. Houses collapse into binary. Trees fracture into polygons. People turn to static and drift upward, like ash escaping. Gravity. And I finally understand I wasn't sent to Mars to explore. I was sent because I could contain it. Me. Not my body. My mind. My consciousness was chosen, long before I was born, to act as a gatekeeper. My crew? They were keys, sacrificial catalysts to trigger my awakening. And the sphere, it wasn't a machine. It was a mirror, reflecting the truth I was built to forget. All these years, the visions, the slips in time, the whispers, they weren't signs of madness, they were diagnostics, the system testing my containment. But something's changed. The containment is failing, not because I'm broken, because I'm remembering. And now, the system wants me to make a choice. Stay here, hold the truth in silence, let Earth go on in ignorance, or release the memory, let it spread, and risk waking up something far older than we are ready to face, something that saw us born and chose to. Bury us? I look around, the false world is collapsing. The pit beneath Mars hums in my bones, and the sphere, the black core of it all, pulses once more. You are the signal now. What you choose becomes law. So I choose. I raise my hand, and I speak the word I've feared since the first moment in that chamber, awaken. The structure shakes, the pit glows, the mirror shatters, and a light floods the false sky, not from above, but from inside me. I was never the survivor of the mission. I was the mission. And now, I've completed it. I don't know if you're still hearing me, or if I'm just thinking into the void now. Ever since SR.Abyssus Palavra, awaken, the world hasn't been the same. It didn't explode. No sirens, no meteor crashing down, no alien ships breaking through the clouds. It was quieter than that, more intimate. It started with the birds. They stopped flying in random patterns. They began moving in perfect spirals. Not once, not twice, but everywhere. Thousands of spirals over every city, every continent, like they were tracing something in the sky. People laughed, filmed it, posted online. But the algorithms didn't pick it up. Because the networks, social, cellular, neurological, they were no longer human. They were mine, or rather, they were connected through me. The moment I triggered the signal from the pit, my mind became the interface, and every person I've interacted with, in dreams, online, face-to-face, started to sync, not hypnotized, not possessed, aligned. First, it was thoughts, people waking up knowing things they never studied. Fluent. In languages long dead, solving equations never written, describing places they've never seen. Then came the visions. They'd blink and see black towers stretching into red skies, hear voices calling them by names that aren't theirs. And some of them, they answered back like they remembered, not in the brain, in the blood. Children were the first to adapt, drawing perfect replicas of the spiral eye symbol without ever being shown, reciting coordinates. The same ones burned into my memory since I left the pit, but others? They resisted, they fought it, called it mass psychosis, said it was an info disease. They tried to isolate the affected, build firewalls, shut down entire cities. But the signal wasn't in the air. It was in reality itself. The Earth, as you knew it, was never solid. It was always a construct. The structure, the one we found on Phi. Mars, it's not just on every world, it is every world, every planet, every dimension, every memory you've ever had. All part of the same system. And the system was dormant until I remembered. And now it's awake. I've seen the changes. The oceans pulse at night, not with tides, but with breath. Mountains shift positions slightly every week, just enough to keep the illusion alive. And time. Time is breaking open. People live entire lifetimes in their sleep. Wake up months pregnant with no partner, aging backward, seeing future events play out before they happen. And at the center of it all, I stand in silence, not controlling, not watching, just witnessing, because that was the final truth. I was never meant to stop the awakening. I was meant to be it. The structure didn't choose me randomly. It built me. My memories, my mission, even my trauma, every piece of my life was scaffolding for a greater process. And now that the process has begun, there's no going back. But here's the part that matters. You're part of it now. If you've listened this far, if these words have reached you, you're remembering too. You're waking up, and the world you see tomorrow will not be the same as the one you leave behind tonight, because the gate is open and the next story will be yours.